whose anti-Semitism should we highlight for today? Because they all seem to get the same memo.
Who's besides Charlie Kirk?
Tucker.
Oh, right. I haven't watched that Tucker Candace thing yet.
Let's do Tucker's. The call has gone out, ladies and gentlemen, for I don't know, to take a step forward. I really wonder what's going on with this. It almost feels like a business proposition. Yeah. There is, it's a very difficult time because there is no doubt that over the past 4 or 5 years, there has been a marked rise in anti-Semitism in this country and, frankly, in many respects across the globe. There was a marked rise, I think, in the past decade in terms of racism in this country, and I think we all know that the anti-immigrant sentiment has been huge over the past 15 years. I think we all know that the reason why these are related is because the Jews are pulling the strings on all this. Or wait, I'm sorry, is that the trope? I don't know. Let's check with Tucker Carlson. He'll tell us. I'm sure.
That's what's also happened is that people that
I should also say he's with Candace Owens, who is seems to be mad because she's not getting the defense that she wanted from her boss about like her Hitler stuff. And I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the right-wing media world. And
she's also taken a look at polling that shows that this isn't very popular. Israel, particularly right now, isn't popular. So combine her being unsatisfied with the defense she got when she tried to defend Kanye West, saying his Jewish doctor was part of a cabal to suppress him. That has come to her basically saying Israel shouldn't bomb Palestinians.
Also, I should also say this. Back in the day, in the early aughts, mid-aughts, when I would go on MSNBC, when it was still a right-wing channel, Pat Buchanan would have me on when he was filling in for Tucker, who had a show. And I knew always that Pat Buchanan would have me on because he knew I would be critical of Israel. And he was happy to have that as and I only did it once or twice because I started to feel creeped out about it because I felt like, wait a second, are we talking about Israel here? And I just remember being at the DNC in 2004 on Radio Row talking to some right-winger who didn't understand what Air America was because nobody contemplated the idea of left-wingers. And he goes like, I'm not like those, Bush types. I'm with Pat Buchanan. All those Bush types are all Jews. And I was like, okay. But I should just, I
just
raised
tent
that
over there.
I just raised that because that brand of paleo conservatism is what Tucker Carlson espouses.
We're going to see that again. Bring that back.
The police. And I think in terms of this, that's what's also happened is that people that are pro-Israel are pro-Israel, a lot of them, because they have family members in Israel.
I get it.
They have homes in Israel.
Yes.
And so they feel very attached to this issue. And, I was very happy to host somebody who was pro-Israel. He's a pro-Israel comedian on my show the other day. And I explained this to him. I said, you are demanding that we have this same response that you are having about what people are saying on college campuses. The rhetoric on college campuses hasn't changed. Did you not remember what they were saying, what professors were saying, the anti-white explicit racism that was happening, and not even just allowed in terms of student protests, but was written into the curriculum at these universities for years. People were learning this actively in school, that whiteness was associated with wrongness. You had college professors that were writing about this need there need to be less white people in America. You can find these articles. They exist online.
They're everywhere. And that seems genocidal. I mean, if you're saying...
It is genocidal.
Like by definition, if you're saying being a certain ethnicity or race is itself a sin and we need less of you, mean, that is the definition, is it not?
Right. It was an understanding of needing to breed out white people. It was unbelievable what I was seeing, and I was impacted by it because I'm in a biracial relationship and I have biracial children. So you are telling me that my children are going to have to decide between whether or not they are white oppressors or they are black victims. It doesn't stand for me. So I was attached to this issue, and it's something that I fought for hard on college campuses, and there was no support. There was nobody talking about, well, this is what needs to go. These kids need to go onto blacklists. And by the way, if they did speak that way, I would have disagreed with it because I am pro 1A. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe that kids, by the way, are naturally stupid. In case people forget, I started on the left, right?
Yeah.
So if you found me in college, you would have found a pro-life person who believed, in some racist principles, fundamental racism in America, because that was what I was being taught systematically in the classroom. And then I got to grow up and change my mind. And I don't think people have thought past their immediate emotions to consider what's going to happen when you put these kids on blacklists. You think that's going to bring them over to the pro-Israel side when they get older? Most of these kids, especially when you're talking about the cream of the crop at these Ivy League universities, already have access to money and wealth and connections. And so maybe debating the issues and explaining to them why it was wrong to sign this specific letter, which didn't call for explicit violence against the Israelis, but it actually was very poorly timed, and it blamed them for what happened, which would have been horrific. Imagine after 9/11, somebody issues a letter on college campus that says, "Oh, well, sorry about the fire department."
I agree.
Yeah,
I get why donors are mad.
Imagine,
and by the way, I support donors giving money to things they agree with.
Yes, I support that.
I strongly do.
Yep.
The part that, and so I have no problem with that at all. You don't like it, don't pay for it. Good for you. However, then I thought, well, wait a second. If the biggest donors at, say, Harvard have decided, well, we're going to shut it down now, where were you the last 10 years when they were calling for white genocide? You were allowing this. And then I found myself really hating those people, actually. That you're okay with that? On what grounds were you okay with that?
And this is what I've been trying to explain to the pro-Israel lobby, that what you are seeing as lack of support is people that are asking the question is, where were you as we have endured all of this?
You were paying for it, actually.
Right.
You were paying for it.
You were paying for it.
You were calling
okay
my children immoral for their skin color. You paid for that.
Yeah, and
so why shouldn't I be mad at you? I don't understand.
And so that is, obviously you have a ton of white people that are asking this question, and they're now being called anti-Semitic. And I think that that's wrong. I think these are meaningful questions that deserve to be answered. Why was this sort of verbiage allowed into the curriculum? I mean, could you imagine if in the curriculum it said that every Jewish person born is a terrorist? This is systematically what has been said.
I just tell you that there is no place in the curriculum where it says every white person is born.
I'm a white guy who got a master's degree. Yeah, that's not really, when people talk about whiteness, it's usually in the structure that prefers certain ethnicities as opposed to others in the context of a settler colonial nation that, again.
Yeah, I mean, but this is important. I mean, I know it seems, like so ridiculous that to go through that, but the idea that you cannot teach about what group of people and how that have maintained a dominant power in a society and how they have maintained it. And it just so happens to be that these people are white. There could have been an alternate universe where whiteness was not it, but it isn't. It didn't happen. History happened the way that it happened. And the idea that there is any curriculum that is teaching there is something intrinsic about white people,
we need to genocide them,
that is problematic is absurd. What there is curriculums that are looking at the distribution of power in our society and beyond in other societies, and how that power was managed. And it's been managed, at least for several centuries, through the prism of whiteness. At least within the context of the societies we're talking about. Not obviously universally, but I mean, depending on the year, I guess. But that's what it is. But they boil it down to they're trying to demonize my white children, because what their agenda is to build anger at non-white people, and particularly non-white people who are not feeding the notion that there's something problematic with this stuff. I mean, that's what Candace Owens, she serves that purpose.
Well, and really, like, this idea that they're not upset that there's any sort of like censorship. They're mad that they didn't use their influence through donations to suppress speech for the last few decades.
Right. They're complicit. He's saying these donors are complicit. Doesn't he get into it? They're Jewish too, right? These donors, does Tucker get there? Okay. So there's this idea that there's these donors who are funding this stuff. And if they had a problem with it in the past, i.e. Black Lives Matter, they would have pulled their funding then. So it's not, the issue isn't that they have a problem with people pulling the funding now. It's that they didn't pull it then.
They blame Jews for the George Floyd protests.
And here's Charlie Kirk sort of really singing the same song about this. He plays a video of a stop hate, stop anti-Semitism sort of PSA. And then he goes into this, which is like the extension of what Tucker and Candace are saying.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
This person, the artist formerly known as Eric. Quote, okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I am deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest swear word, let's just say tiniest crap, now about Western Jewish populations, coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. You want truth said to your face? There it is.
Okay, now pause it. I should just say, Charlie Kirk is reading off a tweet that Elon Musk responded to. I don't know if he quote tweeted it, but he responded to by saying, like, this is all true.
That's so correct.
And or that's so correct. And what this tweet is saying is that, like, it was similar to what Tucker and Candace Owens were saying, which is they didn't say anything before. They sort of nurtured this anti-white stuff, and that's this is what you get. But here's Kirk going further.
Now, let me just say, this is not a very well-written tweet. It's very confusing. I'll go through what they're basically saying here. Half of this tweet is true, half of it I don't like. You want the truth said to your face? There it is. Elon responds, and he says, you have said the actual truth. Now, we don't know what part Elon is saying is the actual truth, so let's go through this. Again, it's double negatives and misuse of the word disinterested. It's a strange tweet that Elon pinpointed on here. But the first part is absolutely true. Let's go to this. Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. Now, I don't like generalizations. Not every Jewish person believes that. But it is true, the Anti-Defamation League was part and parcel with Black Lives Matter. It is true that some of the largest financiers of left-wing anti-white causes have been Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact, we have seen this with the recent retreat of Jewish donations that are no longer going to be administered to colleges, right? Mark Rowan, Leon Kopperman. Can we get that full list? It's very powerful. The part of the, so that's totally true.
Can we
And by
get
the way,
that
Tucker,
full list that we've compiled of Jews? It's very powerful. This is really, this is Charlie Kirk just picking up the mantle from Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, just going a little bit farther with it. And of course, Elon Musk went all the way. But continue. Let's pull up that list of Jews who have been funding all the black stuff, but now they're upset because they're coming.
Yeah, it's not like any of that stuff. Like, for instance, looking at this country's racial history or the way it treated women or whatever. It's not like there's any sort of organic demand to study that sort of stuff. It must come from the dastardly donors.
The number one, maybe not number one, maybe number two or three, prominent dynamic in white supremacy thought. Full on racist. I'm talking KKK, I'm talking neo-Nazi stuff. They must reconcile the question, if black people are so inferior, brown people are so inferior, why are we competing with them? Why do we have to compete with them? Why are we not easily dominating them? And the way they reconcile that question, this is throughout KKK neo-Nazi ideology, is because the Jews are manipulating things to use the blacks, to use the immigrants as a way of defeating the white people. That is classic racist, full-on racist, hardcore racist sort of algorithmic stuff.
Protocols of those of Zion.
There you go. And so that's what's going on here. When they say these Jews were funding all the BLM stuff on these campuses, this fits in very nicely into this sort of like mold that the KKK, the neo-Nazi ideology has constructed.
Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact, we have seen this with the recent retreat of Jewish donations that are no longer going to be administered to colleges, right? Mark Rowan, Leon Kopperman. Can we get that full list? It's very powerful. The part of the, so that's totally true. And by the way, Tucker Carlson reinforces this. So I'm going to kind of, it was quite a day on the internet. Tucker Carlson was interviewing Candace Owens. We have Candace Owens coming up next hour. And Tucker Carlson mentions that Jewish Americans have primarily been financing cultural Marxist ideas. We said this, by the way, last week, and people came after us.
We were on top of it.
We actually said it in a different way. We said, I'm glad that Jewish Americans are reconsidering their financing of cultural Marxism. And people misunderstood it intentionally and slandered us as being anti-Semites. But listen to this. Tucker Carlson is completely correct by saying this, that the philosophical foundation of anti-whiteness has been largely financed by Jewish donors in the country. Play cut 92.
There you go.
Insane.
There you go. There you go.
It's John Birch all over again.
Totally. They've come home, ladies and gentlemen. They have come home. And this isn't just Charlie Kirk in his basement. His radio show is broadcast across the country.
I mean, this is basically a follow-up to the Candace thing with Tucker, and I'm sure she didn't correct him on any of the more explicit ways he said that versus what she said on Tucker.
This is what's happening, and it is it's really difficult to fight through this stuff right now at a time where people who want to justify the right-wing authoritarian government in Israel's attacks on innocent civilians by conflating that act with Jews or being Jewish or Judaism. It's a real problem, and so people need to be, sort of like, I think, doubly sensitive to what they're hearing, but also have the capacity to sort of like filter out other things that are being conflated. Really, really nasty time.